So this month we're going to be talking about our our newly launched fiber optic value-added reseller program. I'm going to talk about the program in general a little bit, and then we're going to cover a couple of specific products that would be make sense as part of that program. So for starters here, Hiroshi is just launching a fiber optic cabling VAR program to provide a complete fiber optic cable assembly and harness solution. This complements our extensive line of ruggedized connectors, and in the past we really haven't had a good path for offering a fully integrated solution. In other words, we could sell components, but we really didn't have a way. If a customer came to us asking for a completed fiber optic cable assembly, we really didn't have a good way to service that. So we've established partnerships with two companies in the U.S. One is TimberCon. They're located just outside of Portland, Oregon. And the other is ATI, located on the Gulf side of Florida. They're two well-established suppliers of fiber optic cabling. We've gone to visit them, surveyed their quality systems and their ability to market fiber optic cables, and we're very pleased to bring them on as VAR partners. Bless you, whoever that was. So this really fits with the wide range of fiber optic, ruggedized fiber optic cables that Hiroshi has to offer. I want to just spend a minute to get you focused on what we're looking to offer. So there are some standard connectors like SC and LC type connectors that are used in the datacom industry, that is within an office environment to pass around some data. Hiroshi does make those connectors, but we're really not too focused on them, mainly because there are many low-cost competitors, and it really just doesn't fit with our business plan of being a high flyer offering some more technical solutions. They're much more of a commodity product. So Hiroshi's focus is really on a group of ruggedized fiber optic connectors. Some are screw termination, that is threaded mount. Some are push-on, some are bayonet locks, a number of different mounting options, but we're really bringing some higher technology engineering solutions to the fiber optic market. So what I'd like to offer you today is a little class on 4 of the series that we see to be most viable for our marketplace, or most interesting for our marketplace. There are quite a few other ruggedized fiber optic connectors that Hiroshi does offer, but I'm going to talk today about the 4 that we see most applicable to our marketplace. So I'm going to go into detail on each one of these, but a little overview is first the MF10 series. It's a ruggedized metal shell using the widely used MU ferrule. That's the fiber optic part that interconnects. They're assembled in a one-piece shell with an integrated housing, IP67 rated waterproof duplex, meaning that there are 2 ferrules in one connector, and it's a small space-saving connector, duplex connector with a threaded lock. The second connector in the MF10 series is the MF10B, B standing for bayonet. Again, it's a subminiature, about the same size, IP67 rated waterproof. Duplex, again, has 2 ferrules, again using the MU ferrule, but in this case it's a bayonet lock instead of a threaded lock. The next 2 that we're going to talk about are the SW series. The SW series is, again, IP67 rated duplex connector that uses either an SC or a LC type connector inside of the shell, and you'll see some examples of that as we go through the presentation. But basically we're taking the SC or LC standard connectors, not just the ferrule, but the entire connector, and mounting it into a ruggedized shell with a bayonet lock. And lastly, we're going to talk about the MF13 series. The MF13, again, is IP67 rated, but in this case, it's a hybrid connector that has both electrical and fiber optic capabilities, again, with a threaded lock. So let's get into the details of each one of these connectors. We're going to start out with the MF10 series. It's a very small, multi-channel, waterproof optical connector with a threaded lock, as I said. Waterproof, compliant to IP67. High strength, accepts high strength, flexible mil-spec cable, which we have the ability to mate or terminate to this connector. It's cost effective, easy to use plastic spanner to torque it down. That is in the when you're with that threaded lock. There is a portable field assembly kit if required, and it's a RoHS compliant connector. Here's an example of the size. We've taken a look at some of our competitors' connectors that do the same thing. On the bottom, you can see there's a competitor's connector that's about 100 centimeters long, compared with the 58 length on the Hiroshi MF10 series. So that gives you an idea of the scale of downsizing or the small size. So that's really achieved through a couple of ways, mainly by reducing the component size and using the ferrules, smaller ferrules. This is the spanner I was talking about earlier. So if you're going to screw the cable plug down to the receptacle, your fingers can get a little tired, and if you used a wrench, you could wind up stripping things. So we've developed this plastic spanner that's cost effective. It's small, very, very inexpensive, so each worker can have one for themselves. It's lightweight, and it has a unique feature whereby if you're over torquing, the spanner arms are designed to release the force or release, so you don't apply extensive or too much force on the threads. Here's a little idea of how we achieve the compliance to IP67, or I should say how we've tested to it. So basically the connector is submerged underwater, and then air is pumped into the receptacle side, and if there's no leakage over a minute, then we're passing that test. I'd also like to note that it has corrosion resistance to salt mist for up to 500 hours. I've got a lot of static from someone. Can you check and see if you are on mute, please? There we go. Thank you. And this slide gives you some idea of the options for that are offered. So on the far left, you'll see there's a panel mount receptacle, of course. There's a plug that fits into that receptacle. There's an inline adapter, so if you've got two cables, you can come into either side and make basically an extension cable. And then there is another extension part that is under development. It's not quite finished on the far right. So you can see it's a fairly extensive line that gives you a lot of flexibility in your system design. Next, I'd like to talk about the MF10B series. This is very similar to the product that we just talked about, the MF10S, only it is the bayonet style. So again, small connector with a duplex that is 2 ferrules in it, IP67 rated. It's easy to clean the ferrules as if they're in a rugged environment, they get dirty. Lightweight, flexible mil-spec cable is available. And there is basically it's a pretty rugged connector that's a bayonet mount, similar features to the MF10 we just talked about. So here you can see the bayonet function. It's simply a short turn, and you're locked in, creating your waterproof seal, and you can hear a clear tactile feel and a click to it. some idea of the size of the plug and receptacle. You can see the plug up on top has an integrated boot over it, which you can cap off with a plastic cover. Here's a slide that shows you can see on the left-hand side, kind of in the light gray, that's the actual connector. And then there is an optional strain relief that you can put over the top of that. It protects the plug from being exposed to environmental corrosion issues, and it's protected against a drop impact. So if you should drop it, it bounces on the rubber rather than the metal plug. This slide shows a couple of interesting features. The first one being the mating interface between the plug and receptacle has really 3 keys that needed to align. This provides some superior vibration and impact resistance. In fact, it's passed some pretty severe railway standards in Japan. They're the specs for it. You probably don't recognize those from the U.S., but they have passed some heavy specifications in Japan. And the way the plug and receptacle are designed, if they're not mated in exact alignment, the ferrules are protected against misalignment, as you can see on the right-hand image. The MF10 series, 10B series is easy to access the ferrule to be able to clean it if it should happen to get dirty. So there's a couple of simple steps to perform, and the ferrule can be cleaned quite easily. And the receptacle, on the bottom left, you can see, if you can see my screen here, instead of round holes, it's got a slight slot to the hole. So that slot allows for panel mating anywhere from 18 millimeters to 20 millimeters, and anything in between that. That slot allows for some flexibility. There's also the option to provide a screw mount on the panel instead of 4 individual hold downs. And the receptacle is designed so that it has both the 4 slots for mounting in that fashion, or the flange here is threaded. So they're not 2 different part numbers. It's the same part for both. And here's an idea of the overall product line. So we have the screw type in either a bare fiber or in a jacketed cable. We have the hex type, again in bare fiber or jacketed cable options. And you can see there's also a boot that fits over the flange, and then you can cap off to get some environmental protection that way. Within the receptacle, there's also a cable option, so for a 5 millimeter cable or a 6.5 millimeter diameter cable. And then the plug is available with or without this rubber boot on it for a 5 millimeter or a 6.5 millimeter jacketed cable. Applications, railway systems, as we talked about, we've got rating in there, industrial machinery, commercial cameras, that's an interesting application, base transmission stations, commercial monitors. Now we're talking about not a monitor on your desk, but a monitor that you might find in Times Square, one of those large monitors. So let's move on to the next style, which is the SW20 series. So this SW20 series, as you can see, these little blue features here, those are actually either SC or LC connectors that are incorporated into this metal shell. With the metal shell, we get IP67 waterproof rating. It's a bayonet lock shell, but that bayonet lock also locks or releases the lock of the SC or LC connectors, so it really serves a dual function. Excellent water resistance, black chromium plating, cable pull strength of 200 newtons with either a 5 or a 7 millimeter round cable, The optical connectors themselves, the LCs or SCs, are water resistant with that one action, as I said. So we can lock the shell with a bayonet feature that winds up using the latch that's on the base connector itself. And there's one housing where you can use either SC or LC connectors, and it's RoHS compliant. So here's an idea of the size of the connector itself. You can see the size, and here's an illustration showing the cable side mating to a standard patch cord. So again, I keep mentioning this because it's an important feature, but with a simple turn of the bayonet lock here, once it's aligned, you are both locking the outer shell and you're locking the inner LC or SC connectors themselves. And again, one action in unlocking, you can see here's the locked state. By turning that bayonet lock, it unlatches the LC or SC connector. So we've got a double locking action. And here's a variety, an illustration showing the variations of the SW20 series. So within an SC connector, it's offered in a simplex plug or a simplex receptacle. The LC is offered as a duplex, that is two connectors in one shell receptacle, or there's an adapter that's available. And then there's a cap that's either a waterproof cap with a chain, or a dust cap. All three of those options are available. Let's move on to the last connector we're going to talk about today, which is our MF13 series. This is kind of a unique connector in that it has 3 electrical contacts and 2 fiber optic contacts. So you've got a hybrid that can provide connections for both electrical and photonic connections. Very small size. It's got a threaded lock to it, and again, like everything else we've talked about today, is IP67 rated. Here's an idea of what the connector looks like, and the receptacle. So this was the cable side, of course, and here's the receptacle side. And perfect applications for this are things like outdoor optical transmissions for surveillance cameras, monitors, base transmission stations, mobile railways, transportation applications, surveying, geological exploration equipment, and wireless communications for military applications. So that's kind of locations where we're seeing applications for these. And that's what I